Hey bakers, so Friday, it is St. Patrick's Day. Now you're probably wondering, Bailey, give us some really good St. Patrick's recipes. Well, most of the recipes that I have are for very Americanized recipes, like mint and stuff like that. Well, that's not 100% an Irish recipe. However, the Irish have this amazing Irish apple cake that is to die for, and I have made it a ton of times, and I'm going to share it with you. And the only reason why I know is because got a little bit of Irish in my background, and I love to learn about my culture and where I come from. I did one of those 23 and 365 life things to find out my heritage. I'm very Eastern European, so I've started baking all of it. So today we are making Irish apple cake. Now here's what you need first. You need 2 Granny Smith apples diced up, and you need to dice them right away so that they can sit and kind of get all that moisture out of them. Dice them and set them aside. You can use other apples, but Granny Smith just happens to work the best, and it has the best flavor. Okay, so what we need to start is, and yes, I'm reading off my recipe because I write everything down because that way it can go in my cookbook, because the next one is all about holidays. All right, so we need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger. I'm not adding ginger. I'm super allergic to it. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. If you are allergic to any of these spices, you do not need to add them in. I get a lot of people that are saying, I'm allergic to cinnamon. I feel ya. I'm allergic to ginger. Just don't add it. All right. Then you need 1 cup of cold butter. And seeing as that we're making an Irish dish, we're going to use Kerrygold pure Irish butter for this. Kerrygold, I love your butter. Once all your dry ingredients are in your bowl with your butter, what you're going to do is you're going to just start mixing it up in your hands until it becomes a sand-like texture where you have no chunks of that butter, and you're going to just rub it through your fingers until there are no chunks. This takes about 6 minutes, and it's a really good workout on your arm. My forearms are burning. Work it, baby. Work! After you have your butter and all your dry ingredients mixed to a sand-like consistency, you're going to add 1 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I poured my vanilla into my sugar to make it easier. 1 cup of heavy cream and 3 eggs. And you're going to give this a whisk. About 3 minutes of whisking, you're going to find that this batter gets super freaking thick. So I had to move to a spoon. And you want to make sure you're lifting your batter up all the way so you don't have any of that crumbly flour and butter mixture on the bottom. Make sure you've incorporated all of it, really turning that over so you don't miss out any of the goodness. All right, our mixture is fully mixed. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it aside, and we're going to take our apples, and we're going to take a separate bowl. And in that separate bowl, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of flour. And we're going to slowly just pour our apples back and forth from each bowl, covering all of our apples. You can do this in a plastic bag to make it easier. I'm just don't want to waste a plastic bag, but you really want to cover all those apples. Why do you want to cover those apples? 1, it's going to help from the moisture in the apples from spreading out to the cake and making saggy spots. 2, it's going to hold the apples in place to where you put them when you bake this, so they're not all going to sink to the bottom and you're just going to get a bottom full of apples. 3, it's going to just add another element of gooey goodness kind of around these apples. It's kind of going to gelatinize around it, and it's just going to be delicious. Once your apples are fully covered, you're going to put them in your bowl and fold them into your batter. All right, once your batter is all mixed, you're going to take a bundt pan. You can do this in any kind of pan. I just find a bundt pan actually cooks this a lot more evenly and nicer than like a regular casserole, Pyrex dish, or a cake pan. Grease this up super nice and well. Make sure your oven is at 350 degrees. Pour your batter into your pan. Pop it in your oven for an hour and 20 minutes, or until you feel the apples are tender and a toothpick comes out almost clean. I'm going to show you, once I have this all in my pan, a little additive that you can add to the top. My batter is all in my pan, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take some sugar in the raw and sprinkle it on the top of it for another element. Pop this in the oven, remember 350 degrees for an hour and 20 minutes. All right, bakers, our Irish apple cake is out of the oven. Oh my God. Look at how, I wish you guys could smell this. It smells divine. Okay, so here's how we know that it's done. When we can put our stick through an apple And that shows us the apples are cooked. And then when our stick comes out, almost clean. When we have little pieces, and this is why we want to do that. With most cooking, you don't want to cook anything until it comes out perfectly clean because then you've overcooked it. While this sits and cools, it's going to continue to cook a little bit in the pan. So we're just going to sit this on top of our oven and let it cool for about an hour and a half because it is dense and super thick and going to be delicious. We'll make the glaze and then we'll slice it. Can't wait to try this. Oh, all right, stay tuned. All right, you guys, so look at how gorgeous this cake is. And you can see that the apples are everywhere in it. Because we doused them in that flour, they don't just sink to the bottom and we get a big layer of apple. They're throughout the cake. You can see them everywhere. I'm so excited. All right, so now traditionally this cake has a custard topping. I'm not a fan of the custard topping, so I always do a glaze. So what I have here is I have a cup of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and all I'm gonna do is slowly add milk. Now, I don't flavor this. I like it to be just an all-natural glaze, and I want it to be a little bit thicker, so I'm gonna go super slow on adding my milk. I'm gonna start with a tablespoon. And the reason why I want it thicker is I kind of want it almost frosting-like, but almost runny. It just tastes the best way that way. All right, so we're gonna slowly add. Okay, what I meant to say was not thin enough. All right, so 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I use 2 tablespoons of milk and 1 cup of powdered sugar. And this is the consistency we get. I want it kind of thick. All right, so then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna slowly drizzle it over our cake and let it go where it wants to go. And then I will show you what this beauty looks like on the inside. All right, bakers, look at how pretty it turns out. I love when it pools in the middle because then when you cut your slice out, you just dip your knife in there and you get a little extra frosting to go on your cake. All right, let's taste this puppy. Extra frosting. For how thick the batter was, it's super moist, not super dense. It's actually super light and fluffy, and you get that flavor of the apple throughout, and that's why we use the Granny Smith because it just is such a strong flavor compared to like a Pink Lady or a Macintosh. The spices are perfect. Try this Irish recipe out, you guys, and let me know what you think. And don't forget to pair it with a perfect cup of coffee, Irish coffee. Enjoy!